what advice do you have for younger filmmakers, cinematographers, on a creative level and on a technical level?
Great question. I think I have two pieces of advice. One is they're both kind of practical, but one of them is I think it's very important for cinematographers to be students of film. And I don't mean celluloid, I mean filmmaking and movies. Though learning celluloid isn't bad either, but obviously it's a lot more limited these days. Directors talk in movie language. Like, all directors are movie buffs, and they watch everything, and they've seen all the classic films, and they think about their film from a perspective of what other movies is this like. That's like every director I've ever worked with. They just think about movies.
How does this fit into oeuvre of cinema, right?
Exactly. And also, like, where am I pulling inspirations from? Because, like, how does a director learn how to direct? They, like, watch movies, And so if you as a cinematographer don't speak movie, I would reckon that it would be very hard to communicate with a director. And I think that I see that a lot. There's like a lot of DPs that I talk to, and I get it. People have lives, people have other stuff going on, and then they're like, I don't have time to watch movies. I don't have time to, get into that stuff. I don't have time to watch the classics. And it's like, well, I think especially if you're starting out, it's worth making the time, because it's worth going back and like really studying those, at least seeing them, at least see those films like once, and there's so many resources. Like ASC puts out a list. They put one out a couple years ago. They updated it. It's like the 100 most important films for cinematography, and it's in chronological order. So it like goes back to, I think, Wings or Sunrise, I think, is probably the first one on that list, and then it just goes all the way up to present day. And it's like, it's 100 movies. You've probably seen some of them. And it's like, go back and watch all of them. Like those really are the movies that every cinematographer should have seen. All of those movies. They're all classics. This isn't the Sight and Sound list. They're not deep cuts. Like, these are classic films that are really worth watching. And then the other one is, to me, cinematography is so much about light, and like we've been talking about, like this pursuit of truth and this pursuit of realism and, creating environments and worlds that feel real and feel convincing and feel lived in. And to me, the way to study that is to study nature. So on the one hand, it's like watch films, watch movies, understand film language, but also, to me, light comes from nature. And the best way to do that is to just like take photos. I think everybody should be an amateur photographer. Even if you're not good at it, it doesn't matter. You're not taking photos for a gallery. You're taking photos for you. And I just think that we all have phones, we all have cell phones that have great cameras these days. And like, I just encourage people to take pictures all the time. Like, always just be observing light in the real world, like in your apartment, in your yard, on the street, in a store, in a restaurant, when the sun is setting. Like, just always be looking for natural light. And like, that kind of street photography trains you to look for that stuff, and it trains you to find good light instead of having to artificially create it. And then when you're trained to find good light, it's easier to recreate those conditions because you know what you're looking for. And so that's probably like my biggest piece of specific practical advice, is like, if you're not taking photos on your iPhone all the time, like everywhere you go, when you notice like some nice lighting, start now, because that is like the best way to learn lighting for me.
My best photos were the ones I wasn't fast enough to grab that I see. So I just try to observe and like capture those moments, and then I'm always chasing those dragons. You
Yes.
know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm always looking for those street shots.
Yes.
Even if I don't have a camera on me, which I always try to have one, I'm capturing frames that I keep in my sort of memory bank.
100%. And that's the point, though, is like, we all have a really good camera on us at all times. So like, might as well use it. Unless you have a flip phone.
Super advice.
Though even flip phones have cameras, I
Worth
think.
a shot, right?
It's always worth a shot.